Is there just something that just seems to plague the industry a bit that gets a lot of people tripped up? Welcome everybody in. It's another episode of the Nice Job Podcast. Excited that you are here. We're getting towards the end of season 2. Just 2 episodes left to go in the season. Episode 49 right now. Episode 50 coming up next week. We are excited about that. And the main reason that we are excited about that is that we got some powerhouse guests coming in this episode and next episode. We always, as you know, look to find experts that are going to bring you their insight and their experience to help you make better decisions. And I do say each and every episode, we'd love for you to comment, share, like it, leave a review on it. We'd absolutely love that. But the only thing we'll actually require from you, just give us a good listen, take some feedback or take some insights you get from here, implement them in your business, and then see if they work or not. We think they will, but even if they don't, that's some data to help you make a better decision in the future. So win-win all around. Today, my expert, we're going to talk a little bit about, reputation, why it's important, how you kind of can use it, which you know is in the Nice Job round. But the main reason I sought out this expert in particular is because of some of the things that he's developed. And I saw a great opportunity when exploring through of exactly, the people that are doing reputation right, how they are benefiting from some of the things he are doing. So who is that expert? Let's get to him now. It's Bryan Clayton, CEO and co-founder of GreenPal. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Nice Job Podcast.
Sean, thanks for having me on. Great to be here. Heck of an intro. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to, as people know, get some excitement and kind of build it up, but ultimately it's 100% genuine. I come to each and every episode trying to learn on my own, but I get the benefit of getting to explore, people like you kind of digging in the brain a bit and find out. And then obviously our audience gets to benefit from the insight. So it's exciting for me because every single episode I get smarter.
Yeah, right on.
And if you knew my background, it's a big accomplishment for me, just to get a little bit smarter. But I want to dive into you for a second here. And I kind of want to get into a little bit of the background, and I don't need to go, all the way back from, this is the childhood road I grew up on, unless it plays in this story. But when you started kind of down the entrepreneurial path and you kind of really started to grow your career, is there a moment in time that you can identify where you had exposure, whether it was to a trade itself or the entrepreneurial side of it, where you were like, you know what, this is something I want to put my head down and really make my career, really make my life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me, it happened really early. So 20 years of entrepreneurship in 60 seconds. Right now, I am the CEO and co-founder of GreenPal. So in one sentence, GreenPal is the Uber for lawn mowing. So rather than calling around Craigslist, you can just hire a grass cutting service right through our app. They'll come out the next day and mow your yard for you. Been at this business for 8 years. My co-founders and I were an 8-year overnight success. We have several 100,000 people using the app, doing $20 million a year in revenue, and we've just been making slow incremental progress for almost a decade now. Rewind before GreenPal, I actually had a lawn care company. I started cutting grass in high school as a way to make extra cash. Truth be told, my dad forced me to go mow the neighbor's yard one day, and something about that just stuck with me. I made $20. I didn't have to hassle my parents for money anymore. I thought this was great, and so I passed out a bunch of door hangers and got like 10 customers that first summer. Stuck with that little lawn mowing business all through high school, all through college. I graduated college. I said, hey, I'm just going to see how far I can take this landscaping company. And over a 15-year period of time, I built it to over 150 employees, got it over $10 million a year in revenue, and one of the largest landscaping companies in the state of Tennessee where I live, and sold it in 2013 to one of the largest landscaping companies in the country. And after that, retired and learned a lot about myself, that I was kind of an entrepreneur. I'm wired to love business. I'm wired to love to be in the game. I got bored and I thought, okay, I got to get back in the game. What now? And the idea for GreenPal was a real straightforward idea for me, and recruited 2 co-founders. And here we are 8 years later. We got a nice business going.
I love that story because you talk about the inspiration, and that's like the first rocket. Rockets going into space, there's usually the initial launch, and they have that little booster. And then the second booster became like the boredom of giving a lot of that day-to-day grind up. And it's interesting because you talk about getting into for high school. Now, when you went to college, did you take curriculum that led you towards the business path? Did you take curriculum, more, lawn management, things of that to really like hone the skill? What did that educational period look like for you?
Yeah, so I did go to school for business. I got a bachelor's in business administration, and I started noticing, like back then, and it may even still be the case today, like there was a big gap between real world, like in the trenches, getting a business going from scratch, and what I was learning in business school. And I was like, man, these people really aren't teaching the truth, or maybe it's not even applying to what it is I'm doing. And so I started noticing this gap, and so I stuck it out. I got through college. It actually took me 7 years to graduate college because I just went nights and weekends and I cut grass all day. And so I got my degree. Luckily I did. But when I graduated, I had to make a decision. Was I going to go into the job market and start a new career? I didn't really want to be a lawn guy my entire life. But I started doing some quick math and I was going to have to take a pay cut. I was like, I was doing pretty good mowing yards. I had a couple of helpers and I was going to take a drastic pay cut going in and starting a career somewhere. So that's what was like the impetus of, let's just see, let's make a business plan. Let's take what I did learn in business school. Let's apply it to this. And then little by little, let's try to grow this to be like one of the biggest, best, most successful, profitable landscaping companies in our market. And it took longer than I thought it was going to, and it was a lot harder work than I thought it was going to be. But luckily, I stuck it out and got lucky, had a good team around me, and we got it done.
And did that recognition of a disconnect from necessarily what's being taught to what's out there, or even just maybe less of recognizing the disconnect, but more of identifying, sort of the opportunity to take the parts that work, eliminate what doesn't, and then bring it with your experience, the part that works, and add in the part thing. Did that sort of same mindset come into the development of GreenPal? When someone said, you talk about like it being the Uber for lawn care, that might not be a one-to-one sort of correlation if someone's going through a business curriculum to think about that. Granted, it is thinking of, product need and some unique selling proposition, but was it that same sort of mindset that came to the development of GreenPal, or was there something else that sparked hey, I think this is an idea we should explore?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any sort of formal training that can train you to learn how to start a startup from scratch. Like it's just one of those things you have to get in there, get in the trenches and learn as you go and try and fail and move from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. Yes, there is a ton of material that you can like learn from, and I encourage people to do that. I certainly I was working 7 days a week starting GreenPal, and half of what I did was learning, listening to podcasts like this one, watching every video I could on YouTube, listening to audiobooks, trying to watch conferences that I didn't go to, but the conference was online. And so all these things, like over time, I read a quote by Mark Zuckerberg. He said, "Don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all." And that stuck with me. And I just decided, okay, I'm just going to soak up as much as I can and spend half of my time learning and then doing. And so I think that's kind of the recipe for success for me is like learn from people smarter than you that have done something similar, apply it to your thing, see if it works. If it doesn't, learn from that and then reapply it and try again. And so that's how I approached GreenPal. And it took like 3 years for my co-founders and I to learn the skills we needed, like software development, product design, growth, SEO, all of these skills that we needed to learn ourselves and like kind of reinvent ourselves. We just got in there and just started learning a little bit at a time and applying it and rinse and repeat. And after about 3 years, we had a pretty decent product going.
Now, our podcast is not a pitch podcast, I like to say. So, people that come on that represent organizations, things like that, it's not about kind of, the selling and the promotion. But I do think it's important for our topic today and our listeners today to have an understanding a little bit of how GreenPal works so that as we dive into some of the nuances of how reputation can play a point and how that kind of expands out for your business, kind of gives a little bit more context. So at a high level, from the perspective of, say, I own a lawn care business, how am I using GreenPal? How is it working for me? What exactly is the process there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So our app, our platform, our marketplace offers a nice convenience for homeowners to just jump on there, get quotes really quickly. They can read reviews about different lawn mowing services, see the pricing, hire who they want. They come out and mow the yard, and they just book them for the whole season right on our platform, end to end. And so it's a nice convenience. But for service providers, that's really why we do what we do. We have set out to build a platform that where anybody who just wants to work hard in the landscaping industry can plug into our platform and make material income, go from 2 customers to 100 customers within their first year. And that's really why I get out of bed every morning. And so for us, we have set out to build an end-to-end kind of toolkit, operating system, if you will, that they can operate their entire lawn care company on top of and get new customers, optimize their route, take care of marketing automation for them, accumulate a persistent accumulation of their reputation, where it's like qualitative reviews and their reliability and how often they show up on time. All of these things kind of accumulate to their profile, and this give them like an opportunity to just plug in, do a great job mowing yards, and then everything else just handled, and on top of like getting paid on time. So that's why we do what we do. And a lot of people always ask me, it's like, okay, well, when are you going to move into like other things like pressure washing and gutter cleaning and snow removal and all these other things? And it's like, really, to offer like that end-to-end solution for one industry, you have to be focused on it relentlessly for a very long time.
Yeah, and that's one of the things similar to, with NiceJob here in reputation marketing is some people have asked if we take on other elements that like a CRM would have. And really, as we were kind of found it and kind of came through, it was important to us to kind of stay in that lane and focus and make it great, because throughout that, there is still systems that do translate. So obviously NiceJob software is good for a variety of different industries, things like that. But if we were trying to worry about scheduling and billing, while at the same time trying to do reputation marketing, we're going to be the leader. And so with our goal being the leader, and now, kind of sitting now on top of that as a leader in reputation marketing, you're kind of spot on to focus in. And one thing you talked about is through the process is these lawn cares are going to be able to have, their quote or they're kind of directed to a customer's inbox. So just to find out myself, I kind of signed up, put in my location, and then all of a sudden, super quickly, I was getting quotes from these actual businesses. And then it came down to what we talk about a lot on this podcast, and I'll just explore a bit deeper with you, is now the customer is presented with these options, and they're going to start comparing, contrasting, and some are just looking for one particular thing, maybe looking for just price or just looking for a certain service, something like that. And others are going to kind of go through fine tooth comb and kind of compare and contrast. And one thing we found that is a huge leg up is part you're talking about is reputation, what you're known for, what you've proven that you can do. And I want to talk lawn care specifically is, that's such it sometimes seems like almost like a vanity industry, but obviously, like lawns, really aren't natural in their own right. So it's something that you're putting in front of your house, beautifying your house, can raise the value of your house if it's done right, things like that. So that's a relationship, you and your lawn landscaper, your lawn maintenance person thing. It's a deep sort of relationship, and trust has to be built from second one. And, or am I kind of mistaken in that? Is it really just like the visual part, then the trust? But for me, I would think I would look for the relationship first. And that's why I think it's so important. Would you agree with that mindset?
Yeah, you really nailed it. So there's like a junkyard of Uber for X companies that crashed and burned a bunch of venture capital from like 2013 to today. Uber for home cleaning, Uber for laundry service, Uber for lawn care, Uber for you name it. And one of the tragic flaws or mistakes that a lot of these startups made was they treated the suppliers like fungible commodities, almost like an Uber driver, where you really don't care who picks you up to go to the airport. It just needs to hit a minimum standard. And so they had tried to apply that model to home services in general. And the reality is that's not how it manifests itself in the real world. You really want the same vendor, same professional on your yard week after week. And so they didn't understand that, and so they tried to go to a model where like Uber, where it's marketplace assigned, where it's okay, you show up, you sign up, we are your lawn care service, and we'll subcontract it to somebody local, and we, it could be somebody different every week. My time in the industry, 15 years in the business, I knew that wouldn't work, and it hasn't, and so I knew that we wanted to be in the business of making those introductions happen really quick, really fast, really seamless, without having to make a phone call, get clarity around the pricing and quality, and also get clarity around the reliability of vendors in your area in terms of reviews you can read about them, but also other stats in terms of how often do they really show up on the day they're supposed to, and how often do they flake, and how often do they cancel, and how often do they get booked for a second lawn mowing, and surfacing that to consumers so then they can make the best decision for them. And a lot of these things kind of combine with the pricing. So let's say you have a rental property and you just really want the lawn knocked down every 2 weeks. You don't really care about it has to be every Thursday. Well, then you might go for one of the cheaper options. But let's say, this is your home and you really love how the lawn looks and you want it nice and neat for every weekend because that's the only time you're home. And then so you might go for a higher tier vendor that's got like a 90% reliability rating and like 500 5-star reviews. So we surface all of that, we accumulate all that data and surface it to the consumer so they can make the best buying decision. And then also it kind of is a layer of accountability for the wild west of service providers, like that, to hold everybody accountable to a minimum standard and beyond. And it doesn't exist anywhere else. If you have to do this in analog, you might call friends and family, you might get some, but you don't really know if you're getting like the best price and quality combination. We have spent 8 years building out that marketplace where you can push a button, get quotes and hire and know, okay, I've got the best combination of price and quality. That's a good match for me.
And that's great because it kind of makes it a one-stop shop, so to speak, for the consumer. They don't have to go then searching all around and things like that. But, if they decide they see the quote in their inbox and they decide to go just to open up another tab and search you, that's now we're having a system in place where you're kind of building reputation goes. It now becomes the cherry on top of the sundae instead of the end all be all. So you created this ecosystem where guess what? You're going to be front and center. You're going to be top of mind. We're going to narrow down all these decisions to just, hey, this one, or this one, or, in some cases people might kind of know. And then now when they go for further social proof, it makes them that much quicker towards a decision.
Yeah, exactly. So, that evidence is what enables the consumer to make an informed, confident decision versus rather than okay, I'm going to, hopefully this person will show up, and half the time they don't.
And you brought up the metric of accountability, right? This is provided to the customer as well, but then obviously the business itself, whether they're using a software like NiceJob and Insights, they're seeing it through GreenPal, if they're seeing it through any other sort of software, is kind of knowing what you're known for and then how to go further. But I often see that even when people get that information, they still make the same mistakes. Is there one in particular in the lawn care industry or in your industry that you feel like you'd love to go to everyone that has the lawn business and be like, hey, you should be doing this thing to help your reputation, and not just collecting reviews, but is it taking photos? Is it making sure, on time and things like that? Is it just something that just seems to plague the industry a bit that gets a lot of people tripped up?
Yeah, the lawn care industry. So zoom out. It's a $99 billion industry, and the top 20 players in the space constitute less than 10% of of the sales. So it's hugely fragmented. I mean, mom and pops dominate the industry. And so one thing if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, no matter what they do, a lot of them will say, yeah, my first business was a lawn care business. A lot of them will say, the first thing I did was started cutting grass, and that was how I got my gateway drug into entrepreneurship. So because the barriers to entry are very low. A couple $100 you can buy a push mower, and guess what? Boom, you're in business. And the other thing is everybody needs your service. So that's kind of how the majority of the industry manifests itself. And so we see a lot of things that you wouldn't think you'd have to call out, but you just do because these folks are new to business ownership. So things along the lines of having the best polished profile that you can, a picture of your smiling face with no sunglasses, and not, that looks nice, that you would be proud of. Pictures of your previous work that maybe, you don't just take it from sitting inside the truck. Maybe you actually get out of the truck and there's no shadow and it looks really nice. Really taking the table stakes stuff, trying to return customers' phone calls within a couple of hours and not a couple of days or never at all. These things you would think should go without being said, but the reality is for service providers in the lawn care industry, 90% of people operating in space don't do them because they don't know they need to, or they might have an employee mindset and not a business owner mindset, or nobody's taught them this, or nobody's forced, so it's like, that's what our platform does. It's like it adds that little layer of accountability and slowly indoctrinates somebody who may just be getting started in business to slowly polish up their profile, slowly understand that, okay, let's write a little bio about your business, what sets you apart from your competition. Let's make sure that we hit the appointments on the day, because guess what? You're being scored on that, and you're not going to get hired if you have a 12% reliability rating. It's like educating the service provider over the course of like 6 months to almost like understand what it means to run a reliable service-based business is something that our platform does and has had to grow to do. It was one of the most surprising things that I came across when I first started GreenPal. Like one of the biggest like misconceptions and false assumptions I had was that we wouldn't have to worry about all that. Like, we literally thought that vendors would be so hungry for these properties that they would do anything that it took. But that's not the case. Like, we've had to like really curate an experience to get somebody to go from 0 to 10 in terms of like not really knowing what to do to like, okay, I'm in the lawn care business and I'm kicking butt.
I never really thought about that. It's because the gateway is pretty easy. I never really thought about the fact that there are probably some neighborhoods around North America where there's a big business competing with like, well, Johnny's kid will cut the lawn for us. Like, it actually is a competitor in that thing. But then as Johnny gets a bit older, or, Johnny's kid gets a bit older and he starts going through, he probably doesn't have the business acumen, because it's always just been like, I do this and then, I get paid. And I guess that ends up manifesting as, oh, well, I just need more leads, right? I need more sales.
Yeah.
But then not thinking perhaps the true thing that's holding you back from really flourishing is those things within the customer experience, within the customer journey, which way before you even get the equipment off the truck to go do any sort of maintenance, you probably maybe had a phone call with them. You maybe had to send, some communications out, and things of that nature. So I love the fact that you not just created a system of, hey, we're gonna get you out front and center, but we're also going to have accountability metrics so that the customer knows, but then also you get to learn kind of throughout the way. These are going to be the key things that are going to help you thrive. Like, we can, get you front and center. Yeah, that's how it'll work. But, the closing part of it is not just you answering the phone and things like that. It's all of those sort of combined. And I guess that's why reputation ended up being so powerful.
This stuff's not taught anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not taught anywhere. It's not taught in high school. It's not taught in business school. Like, calling somebody back in 3 hours, there's no business school course that teaches you how to do that. So you just assume people know to do this. They don't. It's not that they're dumb. It's just nobody's taught it to them. And this is their first business. And so that's what our job is our platform is to kind of is to indoctrinate that service provider to understand how to run a reliable lawn care business.
Yeah, and then as they get that knowledge, they build systems and processes, and then they're able to pass that on. So as they grow, they get further away from driving in the truck.
That's
they
right.
Still know that mantra, that mindset has been passed down. I'm interested to get your opinion on if you feel what we've experienced, over the past year and a half or so, with kind of restrictions, lockdowns and things of that nature. Do you feel that maybe reputation or a little bit of that trust element has gotten exponentially more important? Because one, just from the pure, like, you never really thought about maybe who was kind of around you, but now, keeping distance, things like that, you're definitely more sensitive to that. But also because, people spend a lot more time in their areas and their homes. And when you talk about home service professionals, that relationship got even more strong. But do you think that the reputation element kind of increased more so, especially as people became more digital savvy as they were spending more time kind of searching online and things like that?
We've definitely seen the shift accelerate the adoption of, use this to get things done around the house. This is the remote control for your life. And, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates, these companies have had banner years because people are ordering food now, and people had never thought to order food from an app, just do it as a default way to get it done. And so we've kind of been able to ride that wave. And so reputation and reliability is a big part of that, of reassuring people that they can get things done in the real world through an interface. And whereas, 5 or 10 years ago, the user behavior may not have been there. Heck, the marketplaces and the dynamic, like the actual tech may not have been there, but now today you've got a convergence of, okay, we have SaaS products like NiceJob, we have marketplaces that are collecting this stuff, we have apps like DoorDash that that you can order food from this Thai restaurant and it'll be good and it'll show up on time because guess what, they got like 8,000 5-star reviews. And so like for now, like all this stuff has been accelerated where user adoption is getting like exponentially growing. And the thing is, it's always been easier. It's always been easier to do it that way, but people are now like being like forced and conditioned to do it that way. And the status quo is a bitch. It's the hardest thing to compete against. Like you would much rather go head to head with another competitor than like the status quo. And so like COVID has helped the status quo shift in terms of people understanding that, yes, I can order food from Postmates, DoorDash, and it'll show up when it's supposed to. I can order a lawn mowing service and it'll happen. I can go to a city I've never been to, and I may just stay in an Airbnb because I have reassurances that it's going to be up to the quality standard. And so a lot of these things have like been accelerated probably 5 or 10 years because of COVID.
And I would say the fear that some people had of kind of like, all right, well, does it super revert? You know, like I know my wife and I were talking about like we're amped up to go back, you know, be in a restaurant, things like that, instead of ordering delivery. And so it's like, oh, well, is this just a bubble that's bursting? But I think you kind of put it correctly. These barriers have kind of been broken down. And so now it doesn't seem like a foreign concept to get groceries delivered. It doesn't seem like a foreign concept to book a landscaper online. It doesn't seem foreign. And like from that restaurant analogy, it's like, well, it's still going to rain. We're still going to not want to, you know, get dressed up to go out. And so now we have such familiarity with these apps and things like that. It doesn't really phase us. And so, yeah, I would agree with you. I think it has been a big, you know, kind of push and shift forward. And it's interesting, you know, even I guess the phrase like the Uber 4, that had its own little curve, you know,
push a button
or so back before, but it was even just a foreign sentence.
Push a button, something happens in the real world. It's amazing. Like that was a total, just like a dream 10 years ago, and now it's becoming commonplace. It's just the default way you get your groceries, you get your food, you get your lawn mowing. Maybe soon you'll be able to push a button and somebody will show up and clean your car or something like that. Like these things are happening. This is minute one of day one. And I think COVID accelerated that. And I think small business owners listening to this podcast should probably think about like, okay, how can I think like a tech company? You know, I might just be in the window washing business and like software development is the last thing on my mind, but you need to be thinking like a tech company. Like how do you adopt platforms and SaaS products like NiceJob or different CRM tools or different marketing tools and stitch them together to where, guess what, now you're in the tech business and you'll be able to beat the pants off your competition.
Absolutely love that. Bryan, I think you and I could go probably for another hour or so, just diving in a couple of big things. I love the energy you're bringing, things like that. But before we kind of wrap up, I want to ask you the question I've been asking everyone here in season 2. If you've listened to all the previous episodes, you know what it is. But for those that might be joining us for the very first time, we have experts on the show. And I feel like that people like yourself get to the level you are because there's not a stop-start point. It's always constantly going. It's always churning. So the question I have for you is, what don't you know now that you're either working on the answer on or you're excited to find out? And it doesn't necessarily have to be business related, but just whatever the first thing that comes to mind for that question.
Yeah, business is one of those things, like it's a humble feedback machine for how much you don't know. Like the more you learn, the more you realize, oh, wow, there's so much more that I don't know. And so like, you know, for me, I have a healthy dose of paranoia that there's always stuff I need to be learning. Like there's always smarter people than me that I need to be learning from. And so for me, you know, we're doing well. We have several 100,000 people using it. We're profitable. We have 24 people that work in the business doing 20-something million a year in revenue, but we're not part of that DoorDash, Instacart, Uber Eats, Postmates conversation in terms of the default way you get this stuff done. So that's where we're going. That's the mountain we're climbing, getting to that ubiquity status and getting there. You know, I have theories, I have ideas, I have things we're going to try, I have things we're going to test, but I don't know 100% how we're going to get there. We're just going to keep doing it until we get there.
Yeah, I know that's going to resonate with all the people out there that are making either like some changes to their services or trying something new, trying some new technology, trying to implement it and fighting those, how it's always sort of in battles, like, and that's right on. And I wish you the best of luck in that quest. And just from this conversation here, I know you're going to make some big gains and move a lot of needles there. And it'll be fun to kind of watch along as you go through that journey. If someone's listening to this podcast, wants to find out either more about you or more about GreenPal, where should we direct them towards?
Yeah. Life's too short to cut your own grass. So if you're in the United States, you can just download GreenPal in the App Store or Play Store, and you'll get hooked up with a great lawn mowing service in a few minutes. Anybody wants to reach out to me, you shoot me a connection on LinkedIn and drop me a note there.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link it down in our description. So if you're watching live, just give me a couple of moments, wrap up the episode, and then we'll get it out there. But if you're listening on the recording or watching on YouTube, just check out the description where you'll find it, and that's where you'll see the links there. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Nice Job Podcast.
Sean, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
And it's so glad that they were here. So glad that you were here as well. Again, this conversation would be amazing. It was just Bryan and myself, but the fact that there's a whole audience that gets to listen and learn from it, that's actually why we do it here. So I'm so glad you were joining us here for, the next to last episode here in season 2. So excited that we're going to get there. We're going to take a small little break. We'll have more information on that in just a little bit. But until then, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, feel free to like it, share it, comment, but at the very least, just take something you jot it down, try it out. I'm telling you, it's going to be great for you. Until then, we hope that you're being healthy. We hope you're being safe. And don't forget, it's a little fun out there as well. We will see you next week. Take care, everybody.